Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Hope you've all had a wonderful week. Welcome to our 176th weekly webcast. If this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. If you've been with us before, welcome back. And so the way the call works is this is a two-hour AMA, kind of like on Reddit, and AMA means Ask Me Anything. You can ask me business questions, you can ask me personal questions, you can ask me career-related questions, etc. And within 2 hours of the call being done, what my wonderful staff does is they put together a list of all the questions that were asked, and they go to the description field here in YouTube, and they enter in all the questions. You get immediate, clickable, fast access. Now, before I take your questions, I want to do something a little bit different. I want to talk about goal setting. 95% of people give up on their New Year's resolutions by the third week of January. And the reason is because they don't set a deadline date. And so what I want to do today to start off this call is I actually want to go through a goal setting workshop. And so I want you all to get a piece of paper out, please, and a pen, or I want you to open up your calendar on your iPhone or Android handset and start an entry anytime, doesn't matter, because you're going to repeat it daily with your goals. And all I want you to do is for the next couple of minutes, and I'll play some nice music with quotes, etc. I just want you to write down your goals. Okay? And there's a famous study done at Yale University. And in 1950, the class of 1950 at Yale University, only 3% of people wrote down their goals. And then about 20 years later, they went back to that same class that graduated, and they calculated the net worth of the graduates. And the net worth of the 3% that wrote down their goals was greater than the other 97% combined. And so when you write down your goals, you have to set a deadline date, and you have to tell your friends, family members, or those you trust about your goals. Because what will happen, I say this with love in my heart, they'll ask you every now and then, how's that goal going? Like, how's that goal to write a book going, so to speak? So set a deadline date, tell your friends, etc. So here we go. It's going to be a couple minutes long. And what I want you to do is I want you to write down all of your goals that you are going to fulfill or meet in the next 10 years. And please don't be conservative. Please don't be conservative, because as James Cameron, the wonderful Canadian director, I'm Canadian too, Canadian director of Avatar and Titanic said, if you set your goals high and you fail, you still fail above everyone else's expectations. So I hope this is inspiring for you. Please don't hold back at all. And after you write down your goals, after this goal setting session is done in a couple minutes, if you want, ask me for help on how to achieve those goals of yours. Okay, I want you to be very, very aggressive with your goals, though. Okay, don't be conservative at all. So this will be fun. This will last a couple of music. Again, I've got some nice background music, as well as some quotes as well. So please write down your goals, starting now. Thanks. All right, I hope you feel fired up right now. So remember, with all your goals, make sure that you wrote a deadline date in brackets beside each goal. And what I want you to do is I want you to take all these goals and I want you to put them on your calendar, in your Gmail calendar or iOS or Android calendar, and put it maybe as a 5 a.m. Calendar item that's private, that repeats daily forever, and just call it goals. And every now and then I want you to open up your calendar and look at your goals and check off which ones you've met. And once you meet goals, you have to set new goals right away. You got to push the goalpost out. And so I'm humbly here to help you in any way I can achieve all your professional and personal goals. It's why I do what I do. You all humbly inspire me so much. So if you want, what you can do is, in addition to typing questions here, and I see a lot of questions typed, thank you, you can also write down a goal you have and ask me for help on how to achieve it. Okay, and last thing I'll say about that before taking your questions is the way that I truly get inspired in business is I listen to autobiographies on Amazon Audible from very successful business people, because they inspire you a lot and they give you their blueprint for success. And one of the many reasons they became successful was because they actually helped a lot of other people with their goals, and they also have a positive attitude. Okay, so, and they give and you'll receive. You know the mentality. It's been true since the beginning of time. If you help people, you're helping yourself, because when one teaches, two learn. Okay, more importantly, let me get to your questions now. Okay, great. First up, I've got Sam, and you guys might not see this. He posted this a couple days ago. He wrote, I always look forward to the weekly webcast. Thank you, Sam. Great to see you. You wrote, when starting a company, which advisors do I need on my team? An accountant, a lawyer, etc. Yeah. So the first thing I would say is, before you start a company, make sure to register the company. Okay, you can go to LegalZoom.com and talk to somebody for cheap to set up your legal paperwork. If you don't have LegalZoom.com in your country, do a search on what is LegalZoom.com equivalent in your country's name. I would only hire people that are necessary to create the product right away. I don't think you need to hire a CFO or an operations person right away. Just hire people that can create the product. And if you've already created the product, then just think about salespeople so you can scale as quickly as possible. And in my MBA program, which there's a sale on right now, you can get the silver on-demand version for 50% off. That's $499, and the list price is $999. But in my MBA degree program, in the third semester in the entrepreneurship track, we have what's called a venture capital boot camp. And what I do is I put you through a boot camp, kind of like I used to do when I worked in venture capital, to help you start your company. And I don't want anybody to start a company by spending any of your own money, okay? There's ways to do it for free, and there's ways to do it where you can raise a ton of money from high net worth investors. I've humbly raised and managed over $1 billion in my career, and I want to teach you how. Now, last thing I'll say about that is for this $499 sale for the MBA, which is not going to last that long, what you can do also is once you register, if you go to the very first lecture, you'll see that I provide a link to a YouTube live call I do with only my silver on-demand MBA students. It's every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and we do Zoom as well. So I can help you write your business plan or help you perfect your LinkedIn profile or whatever it is you want me to do. I'm humbly here to serve you. Okay, and the way to check it out is just go to HarounVentures.com or HarounEducation.com. It all forwards to the same place. And if you scroll down right here, you'll see that the MBA program is on sale today. Just click this link to learn more. There's a 30-day, 100% money-back guarantee. I promise you, you'll love it or your money back. Okay. All right, let me get a sip of water. All right, I've got Ray. Hey, Ray, how are you, man? Ray wrote, hi, Chris, 2 questions for me today. Sure. What are the top 5 CEOs of our time? Okay, and you got another question. All right, top 5 CEOs of our time. I would have to say Jeff Bezos is number 1. Okay, I know he stepped aside to let Andy Jassy, who started Amazon Web Services, to be CEO. But Jeff Bezos is definitely the best, and here's why. He has always run Amazon like a small business. He's been very, very cheap with expenses. And in the early days, you'll see if you Google his name and his desk, you'll see he used to use a door, an old door for his desk. Okay, so he's very, very cheap. What Jeff Bezos also believes in is small groups of people can change the world. And so what he does is he has all of his managers, when they set up meetings, they cannot have more than 2 pizzas in the meeting to feed the people in the meeting. It's a 2 pizza rule, because that way you keep the team small. Because people that change the world are usually small groups of people. When you get too many people, it's like government. It's very bureaucratic. Another thing Jeff Bezos does is every year he asks all of his product managers on products like Kindle, Audible, Prime, AWS, etc. He asks all of them to write a press release today that's going to be released in the future. And similar to our goal setting workshop we did this morning, there is a gap. And you have to work as a product manager on filling that gap to get to your goals. So the deadline date is the date for the press release in the future, and the goals are documented as well. So that's what Jeff Bezos does. Now you asked for 5 CEOs, so I got to think of the other ones now. I would say Elon Musk. Elon Musk because he's incredibly positive, he's a visionary, and he is brilliant because I have never seen a Tesla commercial. What he does is he gets free PR, by being controversial and tasteful, using Twitter, etc. So Coca-Cola makes $40 billion a year in revenue, and this is a prop for one of my courses. Coca-Cola makes $40 billion a year in revenue, and they spend $4 billion a year in advertising. That's 10%. And so the brilliance of Elon is that he's controversial, and controversy gets you a lot of free PR. So if you're just starting your company now, you want to be somewhat controversial and tasteful as well. So for example, with my MBA program, I could say Harvard Business School, which is HBS, 2/3 of HBS is BS. So take my program. Or maybe it's Haroun Business School, 2/3 is PS. I don't know. But anyway, have fun with it. Okay, that's 2. I got to give you 3 more now. All right, next up, I would say Steve Jobs, God bless him. He wasn't the very best manager of people at times. He pushed people very, very hard, which Elon Musk does as well. But he was an incredible visionary as well. And his ability to present and motivate people is something I've always found very, very inspiring. This man inspires me so much. And so what I'm going to do quickly is I'm going to play a short video from Steve Jobs. I licensed this video from the Silicon Valley Historical Association. And if you listen to this closely, this might have a very positive impact on your life. Take what we've done with the goal study workshop today and this next short video I'm going to show you and memorize this script here, because I promise you, nobody is smarter than you. And the only limits you have for yourself are the ones you set for yourself. As Henry Ford said, whether or not you think you can do it, you are right. So let's check this out.
When you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is, and your life is just to live your life inside the world, try not to bash into the walls too much, try to have a nice family life, have fun, save a little money. But life, that's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you can change it. You can influence it. You can build your own things that other people can use. And the minute that you understand that you can poke life and actually something will, if you push in, something will pop out the other side, that you can change it, you can mold it. That's maybe the most important thing, is to shake off this erroneous notion that life is there and you're just going to live in it, versus embrace it, change it, improve it, make your mark upon it. I think that's very important. And however you learn that, once you learn it, you'll want to change life and make it better, because it's kind of messed up in a lot of ways. Once you learn that, you'll never be the same again.
Okay, you asked me for a list of 5 CEOs. I've given you 3. Here's 2 more. Next up, we have Jack Welch, the late, great CEO of General Electric. He was fantastic at running GE like a startup. He had many different divisions. He entered many different markets, and he motivated salespeople as well. If you want, you can listen to his audiobook called Straight from the Gut. Again, that's by Jack Welch, the former brilliant CEO of General Electric. The last one I want to mention is Larry Page. And I know that might be surprising to some people, but what I love about Larry Page, he was the CEO of Google, is that he's very ethical. And the same thing with Sergey Brin, his partner who started Google with him. Very ethical. In fact, on the IPO Roadshow, I remember this well back in 2004 when I worked in the hedge fund industry, on the IPO Roadshow, they kept talking about don't be evil. I think it's in their S1 IPO prospectus as well. Very ethical. They also pulled out of China back in January of 2011, which made Baidu a great long and Google a great short that year. But they pulled out of China because of the fact that there were infringements on free speech. And Sergey Brin grew up in disgusting communism. He grew up in Russia. And so he knows how important it is to allow people to speak their minds. Okay. All right, next question I've got here is, where can we read about the different stock market triggers? What sectors will grow after the war? Yeah, it's unfortunate what's happening, and God bless the people in Ukraine. I pray every day for the people in Ukraine. In fact, this is how I start my day every day, okay? I start by thanking God for 10 things in this order. I always thank God for Andrew, Matthew, Dylan, my kids, my wife, Christine, my mom, my dad, my brother, Jamie, my sisters, Katie and Elizabeth, and you, my students. Thank you all. And I pray for my students all the time as well. If you practice gratitude every day before you get out of bed, just thank God for 10 different things. I promise you, it'll put your life in perspective. And whatever bullets are thrown at you, or I should say arrows or mean thoughts are thrown at you, comments by people at work, etc., it won't really matter because you're Teflon. Okay. Now, in terms of sectors, So the best way to understand how to invest in companies is to understand that each sector and each company has mainly one driver, one thing that makes revenue go up or down. And as I teach my MBA program, when you model companies into the future and you come up with target prices, spend almost all of your time focused on revenue because most other items become a percent of revenue. So what are revenue drivers for different sectors? Well, when it comes to the restaurant sector or the retail sector, companies like McDonald's, ticker MCD, or Lululemon, ticker LULU, it's Canadian represent, we always look at something called same-store sales. We never give restaurants or boutiques that open shops, we never give them credit for opening many stores because they can take on a lot of debt doing that. We give them credit ultimately for increasing sales every year. So for example, with McDonald's, it was a wonderful growth stock, ticker MCD, for many years. And then growth slowed. And investors were upset because McDonald's wasn't really growing each store's revenue year over year. So in order to increase same-store sales, what McDonald's did was they offered coffee, right? And that increased sales a lot. They then, after the year-over-year comps got difficult after coffee, then they introduced checkout machines at the store, mainly in Europe. They're coming to America soon as well. They also allow you to order food all day long after 11 p.m. for people that do that. I don't do that. I'm one dumb comment away from ruining all this goodwill I've built over 176 weeks, but laugh at me, not with me, please. So they've got increased same-store sales. Now, if we move on to other sectors like the hotel industry, remember, we're looking for one driver that's going to make revenue go up or down. In the hotel industry, we look at RevPAR, which stands for revenue per available room. Okay? You don't give hotels credit for opening new hotels because they can take on debt. You look for the growth in each room's revenue year over year, like pay-per-view movies, and the name of the movie doesn't appear in your bill. I'm in a weird mood today, sorry. Pay-per-view movies, in-room dining, etc. You always look at organic growth. Now, when it comes to internet companies, usually the driver for early stage tech companies is subs or subscribers. So you look at the number of subscribers a company has. And I remember years ago when the founder of Snapchat was in the Valley, Evan Spiegel, trying to raise money. He was telling venture capitalists about his business model. And the VCs were like, I don't get it. Why do I want to take pictures of my kids and have those pictures disappear? That's just crazy talk. I don't like that business. Then a couple years later, he returned to the Valley to the same venture capitalists. And he said, remember me, I'm trying to raise money again. And they said, okay, well, how many subscribers do you have? And he said, well, we have 6 million. And the venture capitalists were like, oh my God, that is the best business model I've ever heard of. So with early stage tech companies, all people care about is subs. If you build it, they will come, kind of like the movie Field of Dreams. So get big fast by offering an app for free or a web service for free. And then there's a premium service that you can upsell to, which is the basis for my business model as well. Now, if you look at other sectors like commodities, you want to look at two drivers. Number one, the price of the commodity, and number two, the volume. Okay, so when I used to cover cyclical stocks years ago at a hedge fund called Pequot, we'd always think and simplify every investment down to this. If you can invest in a commodity company or a company exposed to commodities like Exxon, ticker XOM, if you can invest in a commodity company that has prices going up for the commodity and volume going up, then that's usually a home run of an investment. And if you want to ask me about other sectors, please do so. But for more details on how to understand what the best drivers are for each sector, you can read a book published in 2002 by Maria Bartiromo. She used to be on CNBC. She's on Fox now. And that book is called Use the News, where she separates the news from the noise, meaning the important things to focus on. Okay. Next question is, what sectors will grow after the war? Yeah, it's an awful thing to think about. But I remember after 9/11, a lot of us invested in defense stocks like Northrop Grumman, ticker NOC at the time, General Dynamics, ticker GD, Lockheed Martin, ticker LMT. We are entering a second phase of the Cold War. The previous Cold War that ended when the Berlin Wall fell and glasnost perestroika occurred in Russia, the previous Cold War was based on ideology. This Cold War is a little bit more dangerous, a lot more dangerous actually. It's based on ideology and land. And Putin is trying to reassemble the USSR, which is terrifying. And I hope and pray the rest of us can no longer be dependent on oil, especially in Europe with oil and natural gas prices spiking, because most of the oil and natty gas in Europe comes from Russia, and Ukraine is the largest country within Europe. It's absolutely terrifying. And there's a famous Saudi executive that worked at Saudi Aramco years ago who said that the Stone Age did not end because they ran out of stones. I hope the rest of us, the whole world, can get off our addiction to oil. Yeah. So I think that clean tech companies will do exceptionally well. Okay. Anything that makes gas or oil alternatives. I also think that defense contractors will do very well as well. Yeah. Okay. Okay, the question is, what is the difference between the courses priced at $4.99 and $9.99? So I'm so sorry for not being clear on this, but I'm having a sale. Okay, so basically, the MBA is usually $9.99, but it's on sale at half price right now. And to learn more, you can just click this link here. And at checkout, again, it's a limited time offer. You get half price, and there's a 30-day 100% money back guarantee. You got nothing to lose and everything to gain. And to learn more about the program, just scroll down here. And I also do Zoom calls as well with my silver students every week. So check it out. I hope you enjoy it. I add a ton of new stuff every year to the program. Last year, I added more than 30 hours of new stuff. And I'm starting to add a lot more stuff as well, like programming to the curriculum. And I'm teaching programming in a different way. I used to be a techie. I used to be a coder for years when I worked at Accenture. I loved it. And I want to teach programming from scratch in a different way with my new 3D printer. And you'll understand why I have this sub-procedure submarine here when you take the program, if you're curious. Yeah. So again, everything I add is new stuff is always added to the curriculum. I see in real time the number of viewers just went down a bit, so I'm going to move on. Good thing about doing this is I get real-time feedback. There we go. Okay. Next up, Anish wrote, what would be our roadmap if one wishes to build a career around economics? Yeah. So if you're fascinated about economics, instead of reading theoretical books about supply and demand charts, which really aren't that helpful, the best way to learn is to read the best newspaper in the world every day for business called the FT, the Financial Times. And I'll show you very quickly how to do this and get this for free. Okay, I'll walk through walls for my students. I'll do whatever it takes to save them money and take their career to the next level. So if you go to ft.com, which is kind of like the Wall Street Journal, but for the world, and the FT is based out of the United Kingdom, what you can do here is look up anything that's macroeconomic related and read that article. Okay, so let me find something macro-based. Let's go here. Okay, right here. So there's something about the IMF, right? International Monetary Fund. So if I click this, it's going to ask me to pay, but I want to save you money. So all you do is you copy, okay, and you paste, and you can read this article for free by clicking here, okay? Now, this doesn't work for all newspapers. It works with the Financial Times because they don't have a very sophisticated paywall. And also, if they didn't allow this to happen, then from a Google SEO search engine optimization perspective, nobody would be able to find stuff that the FT puts out. Yeah. So I would just read real life stuff. Don't read textbooks about economics. Yeah, it's not helpful, in my humble opinion. And everything I teach is theoretical as well. Or pardon me, everything I teach is not theoretical as well. I need a little bit more coffee this morning, man. I'll tell you. All right. All right, Pearl, how are you? Pearl, good to see you. Pearl's in my MBA program. You wrote, glad to be on the call. Thank you. And you wrote, how are you doing? I'm always great. Thanks. All right, I've got a new person here. First time I've seen you. It's Wall Street Wazi. Welcome to the call. I hope you join us again. So Wall Street Wazi, WSW, wrote, hi, Chris. I'm interested in your opinion on the financial sector. In my opinion, I see some attractive companies. Do you see any major troubles ahead for the sector? I do. So as we all know, the American government, the Federal Reserve, raised interest rates yesterday by 25 basis points. And that means 0.25%. And for the first time since 2018, they did that. Also, mortgage prices are above 4%, or mortgage percent if you want to get a mortgage. So basically, if you're having higher cost of money, fewer people are going to borrow money from banks. So it's a net negative, I think. Yeah. Okay, next question is, it's been a week that many people approached for investing into their direct investment trading company. I'm not sure about their genuinity. What do I do? Yeah. So if a friend, and I hate to say this, and I say this with love in my heart because I care, but if a friend of yours or any of ours approaches you and asks you to invest in a company, I would ask myself this in my mind: why am I so lucky to be given this opportunity? It might be because nobody else wants to invest. Also, before investing in anything for the rest of your life, what I want you to do, please, is I want you to ask them for the investor offering memorandum. Okay, and all investments that are worth doing have these. Okay, and in a lot of countries, it's the law. Like America, it's the law if you're on the stock market. And so this here is the investment offering memorandum for Facebook. This is the IPO prospectus, also called the investment offering memorandum. This came out in 2012. You got to read these things cover to cover always, because there's a lot of lawyers and investment bankers, that put these things together. And by law, they have to list all the risks. Otherwise, there's a chance for lawsuit. So always read the investment offering memorandum. Yeah. And more often than not, the best decision from an investment perspective is to pass. Always do your research. And in my MBA program, what I do is I provide you with tons of arrows in your quiver or tools in your toolbox so that you can do research on any type of company. I never tell you what to buy or sell. I provide you with all the tools so you can make your own decision. Okay, next up, Simon wrote, hey Chris, how are you doing? I'm always great. I hope you're doing well. And then you wrote here, does learning in your courses demand memorization, or is understanding enough to know all about all of your courses? Yeah, it's a great question. No. My goal from day one here has been edutainment. And I believe that in my heart so much that my license plate is edutain. And I use a ton of props to teach so that you learn by accident. You're like, oh my God, I kind of enjoy this. He says a lot of cheesy jokes. I'm laughing at him, not with him. But I provide you a lot of props as well to teach you stuff from scratch. So for example, I used to be a programmer, and as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, I'm going to start teaching programming, which will be free electives for my MBA students. And I'm going to be using a lot of props as well. Because when we were younger, a lot of times we don't remember what the teacher said, but we remember the objects they used to teach, or we remember the objects our friends brought in for show and tell, like this. And I have very, very small hands. I'm a tiny person, by the way. No, but for example, with this, what I'm doing is when I'm teaching programming, I'm going to be teaching you all how to think like a computer. So the way a computer thinks is it thinks big to small and then an action word. So if I want to turn this eraser here green, I would say pencil.eraser equals .color equals green, for example. So everything I teach, I use tons of props, as you all know. It's a lot of fun, and it's the easiest way to remember this stuff. Yeah. Okay. All right. Andre, who's in my MBA program, good morning to you as well. Great to see you always. Always. Okay. All right, next up, Kumar wrote, hi, Chris. You're really amazing, man. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I want to meet you someday and listen to all your stories. You inspire me. And thanks for the heart emojis. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. You're keeping me wanting to do this. And I'm going to do this till the day I die in 8 million years. I'd love to meet you too. And we have an annual alumni and graduation event for people that have taken my MBA program. We have over 1,000 people that have taken it. We had a wonderful graduation and alumni ceremony. And you can attend these things even if you haven't graduated. Okay, and it was last year on December 18th. That was a Saturday. It was a lot of fun. And I did 12 hours in a row of one-on-one meetings on the Sunday, December 19th last year. Yeah. All right. Okay, next question is, who are your top role models currently for living an insightful existence? I'm Christian, so it's definitely the Lord Jesus Christ. Aside from religious figures, I mean, there's a combination of a lot of people that have influenced me. You know, people like Gandhi, for example. who believes in nonviolence. There are certain politicians that have been ethical over the years. There's also certain business people that inspire me. I don't. One thing that kind of bothers me about the business world is how we all tend to worship people that make a lot of money, and we respect them for that, but we really don't pay attention to the fact that a lot of them have broken homes and they've been divorced multiple times. And so for me, I have much more respect for somebody that is, yes, successful in business, but also gives a lot back in terms of time, money, etc. And they have a great family life, right? The worst thing you can do is work for somebody at a company that has kids that doesn't spend time with them. Yeah, because it's kind of a reflection of who they are and how they'll treat you. Yeah. And if you have kids, don't work for somebody who doesn't have kids. Yeah, unless they're really nice. All right, next up, Manas wrote, good morning, my dear mentor. Hope all is well. Good morning to you too, brother. Good to see you. What a beautiful day. And first of all, happy holidays to you. It's the Festival of Colors in India. May this holiday bring the best out of all of us forever and ever. Thank you for that. God bless you for that. Now, there is one short commercial I saw which really, really inspired me. And it kind of makes me think back and remember how great of an upbringing I had. It's a British Airways commercial. I want you all to do a search for. Okay, it's a British Airways commercial about this guy in New York that flies home to spend time with his mom and surprises her, and it really appeals to emotion. And they also have the Festival of Colors in that video. So check it out if you want to, please. I absolutely love it. If you can appeal to emotion in business, then you've got a multi-billion-dollar product. And that's what profit margins are, and that's what a higher pricing point means. It means you're building on emotions, right? Like we pay a lot of money for this, sometimes $4 in a bar because it elicits emotion. Coca-Cola is the best at that. Apple's great at that too, which is why people pay a big premium for this. Yeah. Thank you. All right, next up, Kumar wrote, very difficult to find a passionate teacher like you in today's world. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm saving money to join your MBA Metaverse course, which is very affordable. In India, it costs more than 10 times for MBA college. Yeah, I'm so sorry that the pricing point is high. We did cut the price in half temporarily from $9.99 to $4.99. And the Metaverse thing you mentioned, what I'm doing is I'm adding 100 optional case studies that are using the metaverse so that we can learn about business together virtually. And one of the case studies I'm working on is this. And if you're curious about what that might look like, go to my YouTube page and you'll see about 5 or 6 weeks ago, I did a sample metaverse weekly webcast. It was just a test. But the first case study is going to be Apple potentially buying Nintendo. And so what we're going to do is in the metaverse, and it doesn't mean you need to wear some rendition of VR goggles, right? You can just use your arrow keys to walk around the metaverse with me and your fellow students. But what we're going to do in the case study of Apple buying Nintendo, to pretend case study, is we're going to start out at Apple's headquarters in Cupertino in their spaceship building. And we're going to talk to the VP of Finance there and the CFO, as well as the investment bankers, and why they want to buy Nintendo. Then we're going to teleport together over to Japan to meet with Miyamoto-san, who is the brilliant visionary at Nintendo and other executives to talk about why they don't want to sell themselves. And Nintendo is the oldest tech company on the planet. They've been around more than 100 years. Then we're going to teleport to New York City, and we'll have an office on Central Park, and I'll rent office space, real office space, actually virtually, from Airbnb. And what we'll do is we'll meet with the Goldman Sachs investment bankers to talk about the deal. Then the case study that's interactive for all of you is you're then going to go into a room, the conference room at Goldman Sachs, for example, and you're going to look at the financial statements for Apple and for Google, and you're going to combine items on the financial statements and try to figure out if the deal makes sense or not. And this will be a lot of fun, you'll see. And I have tons of 3D assets I purchased over the years, which I've used in my MBA program. You guys have all seen them. And I'm going to make these virtual now as part of the metaverse. Yeah. And that's free for everybody that buys the MBA. All right. Next up, Manas. And earlier today, we started with a wonderful goal study. And please click the like button if that was helpful to you. But Manas wrote, my goal is to teach 1 billion minutes online by the end of December 2022. That's my take, my mentor. I love it. I love it. And Manas, for those of you not familiar with Manas Roy, R-O-Y, last name, he has a number of courses on Udemy right now. He also wrote a book, which I bought. It's called Bonds Before Business. And I want you all to write a book as well. Okay, and I'm going to spend just 20 seconds on this really quickly, okay? So the way to write a book, and it can be life-changing. It was humbly for me. The way to write a book, I don't want to promote myself, but the way to write a book is you can use this template, which is 6 inches by 9 inches. And when you write a book, and it's so easy and free to do, I'll show you in a second how to do it. When you write a book, if you go to informational meetings, give them your book, or an interview, give them your book, or potential customers, give them your book. Okay? I know it sounds like a lot, but your competition won't do that. And you got to ask yourself, how badly do you want that job or that customer? So here's how you do it. So you go to my website, harounventures.com/write-book. Okay? And tons of my students have done this, and I bought tons of my students' books as well. And you click here to download the book template. And if you know how to use a browser, Microsoft Word, you can do this. And so on the first page here, it's just one page of instructions on how to publish it on Kindle, paperback, Audible, as well as Audible. And then here, basically, you just fill in the blanks, right-click to repaginate, and you're done. It is that easy. Yeah. Okay. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay. Next up, the Berlin, who's in my MBA program. He's from San Bernardino, California. Good to see you. That's where Ken Griffey Jr. played the minors. He wrote, good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is doing great. We are blessed to have this man, thank you, in our time. Let's get it. Let's go. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. I love that. Love your positive attitude. Next up, Kumar wrote, thank you for all your efforts. And thank you for those heart emojis. Right back at you. Thank you. Okay. Next question is, I was thinking about my goals, but nothing is coming into my mind. I don't know what to do. Yeah. So here's how you do it. And I try to advise everybody to do what they're most passionate about in life. You know, don't try to please other people around you by becoming, a doctor, lawyer, engineer, etc. Otherwise, you won't be happy, unless you want to be a doctor, which is a beautiful thing. I want you to focus on what makes you happiest. And the way to come up with what makes you happiest in life is to do a ton of informational meetings. Okay, so what you can do is find people with a similar background or life story to you, maybe they went to the same school as you, and send them an email over LinkedIn just to do an informational meeting. For example, when I was younger, I wanted to be a lawyer because I read all the John Grisham books and Scott Turow's book 1L. I went down to visit Harvard Law School. I was really excited about it. I watched A Few Good Men as well with Tom Cruise. You Can't Handle the Truth. I loved it. And then I went down to Harvard Law and I met with a lot of lawyers. And I realized that, oh my God, I don't want to be a lawyer. Are you a jerk first, or do they teach you that in law school? Just kidding, sort of. Not really. Well, a little bit maybe. So I want you to set up a ton of informational meetings just like that, okay? And the way to do it, the way to set up these informational meetings is as follows. I've got a 200-page book. I'll show you quickly. People have criticized me in the past for mentioning this too much, which is why I don't do it as much anymore. I'm very transparent. But the way to understand how to network and get these meetings is go to my website, harounventures.com, scroll down, and you can download this book here for free. Yeah. Another way to find your passion and purpose in life when it comes to goal settings is, you see how many people I just lost? Concurrent viewers for showing that? It's amazing. I get real-time feedback. Yeah. Another way to find out what your passion and purpose is in life is to actually think about it this way. If I give you a month off and you can't travel and you can't go to work or school, what are you going to do with your time? And no matter what anybody tells you, that is your passion, your purpose, your raison d'etre, and that's what you should go after. And I want to help you achieve those goals as well if I humbly can. Yeah. Okay, next up, Manas wrote, my mentor, call me Chris please, another goal is to teach with you in your office. Thank you. And I'm working passionately to get closer to it every day. And yes, I'm excited about it. Awesome. I'd love to meet you. Moving on to Sam, who wrote, how can we learn about companies planning a spin-off? So it has to be publicly disclosed. Otherwise, it's called insider information. Yeah. So, and the way the government finds out who's guilty of insider information is not just through wiretapping, but also they monitor how many shares you buy and if you buy something that doesn't trade much. For example, you have David Geffen, who founded Geffen Records, and Barry Diller. What they did in January, according to the Wall Street Journal, was the day before the acquisition of Activision by Microsoft, they bought a ton of call options. Okay, and whenever you're very active in options, it basically sends off a flag or notice to the government. The government looks at it using AI data analysis. And so they're investigating them right now. So when it comes to understanding spin-offs, etc., you'll never know until they're announced. Yeah. But if you have a specific company, I'm happy to go through and talk about it from an investment banking and investing perspective as well, in more detail. Yeah. Okay. Now, if you want a good case study, and we talk about this in my MBA program, you can look into eBay. When private equity, a private equity firm bought a lot of eBay shares and forced them to split into two companies. Okay, Carl Icahn did that. One was eBay Marketplace, right, which value investors love, and the other is PayPal, which growth investors love. And I did a bunch of case study videos on that. You can always search my channel. Yeah. Okay, next question is from Manas, which is, why not put some lights around the logo, some dim lights that make it look dope around the logo? I'll show you the issue with that. Thanks for asking. So I use DMX lighting, which is all controlled by my computer here. I'm a nerd. But if I crank up the lighting too much at the bottom, it's got shadows. And so I had to mount two lights to the top here, right? So still trying to figure it out. And as I print these things, and I will be printing a lot of these using my 3D printer, one thing I've learned is you have to actually make them really, really thin. Right? For example, this is a prop for one of my program courses that I'm putting in the MBA program. But if it's thick like this is from my $170 3D printer. If it's thick like this, you'll have shadows. So I got to make it really, really thin if I can. And I've been playing around with the props here somewhere. But yeah, really thin. Okay, and Manas wrote, a difficult question about Russia and how it is taking down everyone. Do you think paper sanctions would stop it, or is something big is coming? Thanks, yeah. I mean, there's been so many sanctions already put on Russia right now. I don't know how much more you can do. I mean, the only major economy that could put sanctions on would be China. I don't think they'll do that. China is staying neutral. And one thing I admire about the Chinese government is that they stay out of everyone's way when it comes to geopolitics. They don't try to be the world's police, etc. So they've stayed very neutral on Russia. But what could tip the scales to danger zone, or more danger, I would say, is if China pounds the table passionately supporting Putin, which, God willing, they don't do. And one of the many reasons why there are huge economic sanctions all over the world on Russia right now is because if we allow Russia to get away with this, taking over a country, then does that mean that China can do the same thing with Taiwan, which would be chaotic? Yeah. Okay, next up, Hijratullah, and if I mention your name incorrectly or read it incorrectly, let me know. So Hijratullah Sadat. Oh, Sadat, like Anwar Sadat. That's right. He was the great president of Egypt who brokered the peace deal with Israel. Thanks to Jimmy Carter. Yeah, God bless him. You wrote here, I want to start an Amazon service in my country because there are no services here delivered. As such, and I want to start it with limited resources, and I need your advice. Yeah. So the best way to start a web-based company is to use cloud. And Amazon Web Services, if it's available in your country, you should be able to get access to AWS online. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. That's the best way to run the infrastructure of your company. Okay, and the reason I say that is because Amazon, unlike Microsoft and other large tech companies, Amazon always wants to be the lowest price leader. And so they cut the pricing point on Amazon Web Services more than 100 times since 2005 when it was announced. Other software companies don't cut prices. And as a result, you've seen the birth and boom of tons of different amazing companies that only exist because they run entirely off of Amazon Web Services. Like Uber, for example. And I want you all to watch the TV show called Super Pumped about Uber. It's the best business show on television right now by a mile. Kyle Chandler does a great job of being Bill Gurley, the venture capitalist in that show. But I want you to run your entire company off of a platform like that because it's much, much cheaper as well. Okay, and the best investments in history are ones where you own the road, meaning the platform, and you charge the cars, kind of like Amazon does, LinkedIn, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, etc. Own the road, charge the cars. But I would leverage AWS initially if you can. Yeah. But write a full business plan first, please. And it breaks my heart, but a lot of people start companies without writing a business plan, and it hurts their health and the relationships with their families and their bank account, obviously. So in my MBA program, in the 3rd semester, I have a venture capital boot camp where I teach you how to start a company by writing a thorough business plan, because failing to plan is planning to fail. Yeah. Same thing with stocks. Don't ever invest in stocks without doing a write-up. And I have a lot of templates for you in my MBA program about how to do write-ups for stocks as well. Yeah. Otherwise, what happens is you're a tourist in stocks if you don't do your own research. And when it goes down, you panic sell. And it's interesting because Warren Buffett said the New York Stock Exchange is the only store in the world where consumers sell stuff when it goes on sale. Think about that. Selling something you love because it's cheaper. It's highly illogical. Doing an investment write-up will stop you from being illogical and unemotional as well, which can destroy your portfolio if you're too emotional in business. Yeah. You got to be like Marty Bird. I don't know if you guys are watching the Ozarks, but the final season is coming out in April. If you're watching the replay, April 2022. And Marty Bird, who's played by Justin Bateman brilliantly, is successful in that bizarre show because he's unemotional, very unemotional, unlike his wife, who's more aggressive and emotional in that show. Be unemotional in business like Elon Musk, and you'll do exceptionally well. And you'll be a contrarian as well. Okay. All right, next question is from Makiri. Wrote, what's the best way to put your goals into chronological order? Yeah. So here's what I would do. I would just basically free flow, write down your goals. Don't be too structured. Okay, that's what we did at the beginning of today's webinar. And then once you do it, in brackets beside each goal you have, put a deadline date. And then just sort them. Yeah. And don't be conservative at all, please. Yeah. All right, next up, Sam wrote, I know you're a health-related person, like the Oura ring, which I'm wearing now, yeah. I use Circle DNA to get genetic health information. It's worth checking out. Now, thanks for that. I appreciate that. Years ago, I had my DNA sequenced as well. And the reason I did it was I saw the movie Minority Report with Tom Cruise. And during that movie, it's fiction, obviously, there was a pre-crimes division where they figured out what crimes people are going to commit in the future. And they arrested them before it happened. Bizarre. I thought about that a lot, and I thought to myself, what if I could find out what illnesses I'm going to get in the future and treat those illnesses now? And so I had my DNA sequence. It's cheap. Anybody can do it now. And basically, it told me that there's close to a 70% probability that I'll get AMD, or age-related macular degeneration, meaning my eyesight will go down a lot by my 60s. And I asked my mom about it, and she's like, oh my goodness, your grandfather had that. Grandpa, I missed you. I love you. So what I do now is I went to an eye doctor. My eyes are fine. And for many years now, since my DNA was sequenced, I take these relatively benign zinc pills. Okay? And they're over the counter. And it's supposed to treat this eye deterioration I may be getting, according to my DNA and my relatives and my history. It treats it so it never happens. And I do it for other things as well. And what I recommend everybody do also, in addition to that, if you don't want to get your DNA sequenced, is I want you to ask your relatives, your parents, your aunts, your uncles, etc., what illnesses they've had in their lives, or what illnesses their parents had in their lives. Because genetically, from a hereditary perspective, there's a good chance you can get that as well. And you can nip it in the bud so it never happens if you take the right supplements, avoid certain foods, etc. And so what I do and have been doing every Sunday is I prepare 7 of these things. And this is my breakfast and lunch every day. And every antioxidant on the planet is in here, and greatest hits of stuff that will stop me from getting certain illnesses that in my family. Yeah. All right. I love to biohack. Whoa. Hold on one second. That was my plant that just fell. I want you guys to see and laugh at me as I get it. All right. It didn't break, thank goodness. Awesome. It's fake anyway. Yeah. Looks nice though, huh? All right. And I've got this new angle here, kind of playing around with it, and I can change the camera angle so I can say something really serious when it zooms into me. This is something really serious when it zooms into me. Yeah. All right, let me go back to the other mode. I'll use a stinger here too, which is this. All right. I'll keep that here. That might be kind of nice, huh? Nah, I'll go with simplicity. And as Salvador Dali said, if you strive for perfection, you'll never reach it. And that's one of my big problems, one of my many problems. I'm a perfectionist, and it kills me. It kills me. And Reid Hoffman, who's the brilliant co-founder of LinkedIn, he's now a wonderful venture capitalist at Greylock here. What Reid Hoffman said is that if you release your product to the market when it's perfectly ready, then it's too late. You missed the market. You got to get your product out early, even though you know it's not perfect, and fix it in real time. And that's called an MVP, or minimum viable product. Okay, next up, Himanshu, how are you? It's been a while. Great to see you, man. So Himanshu wrote, hey, Chris, is NFT art buying and selling good for the future? It all depends. And so with every asset class, including NFTs, commodity stocks, etc., and cryptos, you got to look not only at the fundamentals, but also supply. You know, my grandfather used to tell me, Chrissy, buy land. They're not making it anymore. So you want to make sure that the supply is low. And I've done a lot of work on NFTs. I have a course coming out soon on it and something much more comprehensive in the MBA program coming soon. Anyone that bought the MBA will get that for free. But when I look at NFTs, the way I think about it is as follows. You know when you buy a piece of art and you put it on the wall and it's a print, it's not an original. And if you look in the corner, it might say number 3 out of 400, right? So there's only 400 that exist. And some of those prints go up in money because there's a limited supply. That's how we think about NFTs. But you also got to look at the underlying popularity of the NFT and ask yourself this question. In 5 years, will people more likely want to own this NFT or investment I'm about to do than they are today? And what I do with NFTs, I look at baseball cards. I've collected sports cards my whole life, paper-based ones. And the younger generation has grown up digital. My kids are in the YouTube generation. So they're used to owning digital stuff in the cloud. So I love to look at owning digital baseball cards as well, as long as the supply is limited. I don't just buy any art from a random person. Yeah. All right. Okay, next up, the Berlin, who's in my MBA program, wrote, what is a good company that you heard that has great sales training program? Yeah, there's 2 companies that stand out. Number 1, Oracle. Number 2, Salesforce.com. And so Oracle, ticker ORCL, is based here in the Bay Area in Redwood City, although they're moving to Texas soon. Oracle has the highest number of successful founders coming out of a tech company. And part of the reason is because at Oracle, there are wonderful salespeople. And Larry Ellison, the CEO founder, is one of the best salespeople on the planet. Now, Oracle has a type A corporate culture, which might not mix well with a lot of people, especially me. But people are very aggressive there when it comes to selling. And that's one of the reasons they're so successful. Now, Salesforce.com was founded in 1999 by Mark Benioff, who used to work at Oracle. And he was, in fact, the youngest vice president in Oracle's history. And Salesforce is the largest company now in San Francisco. Mark Benioff is a wonderful humanitarian. I love him. I met him a couple times. And you learn how to sell really well at that company as well, because Mark came from Oracle and because he's had such incredible success from such a young age. Yeah. And the great thing about Salesforce.com also is they've got a 1%, 1%, 1% charitable philosophy, which means this. 1% of all their products go to charities every year. 1% of all of their earnings go to charity every year. And 1% of all of their employees' time is doing charitable work every year. If you can set a wonderful corporate culture, it gives you, I don't know, a sense of purpose as well. And I don't know, it helps when it comes to people that are considering working at the company or buying products from the company. And it's the right damn thing to do, too. Yeah. Okay. And the great thing about software is that, like, it's tough because you're selling something virtual you can't see, feel, or touch. And that's why for many years, for decades in the Valley here and globally, they call these software salespeople sales evangelists, because you're selling something virtual you can't see, like religion. Okay. All right, next up, the Tattooed Medium, hey, how are you? Wrote, as a sole proprietor, what taxes do I pay into so I can buy a home or any major big personal purchases? Yeah. So you could still save money in your retirement savings program if you have your own company. In the United States, it's called a 401k. In Canada, it's called the RRSP. There's one in every single country. So it doesn't matter if you run your own company or you work for somebody else. You're allowed to invest a certain amount of money every year, tax-free in that. Yeah. Also, I would talk to an accountant. Like, never do your own taxes. This goes to everybody, please. Doing your own taxes and not hiring an accountant is like, I don't know, doing surgery on yourself, not going to a doctor. Because accountants are up to date and up to speed on all the accounting rules. And the tax code changes every year, and it's impossible to keep up. And a good accountant will keep you out of trouble. And also a good accountant will find you all the write-offs you need for your business as well. And what I recommend, because I have my own company as well, is I have 2 credit cards. One is for personal, one is for business. And I keep it simplistic so that at the end of the year, I have my accountant who does both my personal taxes and corporate. I have my accountant download statements from the various websites for these credit cards. Yeah, I keep it simple. Always hire an accountant, and they'll help you out more than I can too. I'm not that great at that stuff. Okay. All right, next up, Sam wrote, prayer and faith are powerful. Amen to that, I agree. Where there is faith, there is no fear. And where there is fear, there's no faith. Oh my God, I love that. I gotta take a little screen print of that. Give me a second. Thank you. I have to read that again. Prayer and faith are powerful. Where there is faith, there is no fear. And where there is fear, there's no faith. I completely agree. And a lot of people worry in business. They over worry about stuff that never happens. And as Dale Carnegie said, it's not work that kills us, it's worry. And Winston Churchill once said, I once met a man on his deathbed who talked about all the worries he had in his life, none of which came true. So Hakuna Matata, things are never as bad as they seem. And the way that I deal with stress and worry in business is I tell myself something that's pretty simplistic, but near and dear to my heart. I tell myself, with my business and my career, God already knows what's going to happen, which puts peace in my heart. And if I worry, then I'm kind of questioning my faith. And I'm not going to question my faith. Okay, next up, Sam wrote, thanks again, Sam, for that quote. I love that. Sam said, you said something like, don't buy options if a company might be acquired because the SEC will investigate you. What would attract people to buy options in a company being acquired? What is the risk reward? Yeah. So the way that options work is with call options, you can invest a tiny bit of money, and if the stock goes down, you lose just this. But if the stock goes up, you can make like 10 to 100 times your money. It's a different way to think. And it's in the 4th semester of my MBA program. For everybody that's signed up, just go to FA44. That's Finance and Accounting Semester 4, class number 4. It's 30 hours worth of options and hedge fund stuff. So usually options the volume is not that high. More people buy stocks than options because with stocks you can kind of sit on them forever. There's no element of time or expiration. With options though, when you invest in options, if the stock doesn't move, or the underlying stock on a call option, for example, if it doesn't move, in most cases you lose all this money when it expires. The timing expires, which is usually in 30 or 60 days, all the way up to 3 years with something that are called leaps, which are long-term options. And given the fact that there's that embedded risk of losing everything you invest in, the volume is lower in stocks than it is the volume is lower with options than it is for stocks. Okay, and because of that, if somebody buys a ton of options, and they make money off of it, the government looks into it. They look into it as well. And before I talk about Coca-Cola, and we'll look at a real case study with Coke right now in a second, a simplistic one. I remember after 9/11, it was awful. Like I saw the whole thing from my desk. I was on the top or second from the top floor, the most southern building in Manhattan when I worked at Goldman Sachs. It was terrible. Bad memories. But I remember like a week and a half after 9/11, when they opened up the markets again and allowed us to come back to work, I was sitting in front of my Bloomberg terminal. And Bloomberg is just like finance.yahoo.com. Don't waste money on it because you get it for free with finance.yahoo.com. But on Bloomberg, what I did was when I sat down on the trading floor to go back to work, I actually entered in all the U.S. airlines options activity. So I entered in DAL, which is Delta, space OMON, which is options monitor in Bloomberg. I also entered in AA, OMON, American Airlines, Continental, CAL, etc. And I did a little bit of research. I was curious because obviously the airline stocks were down a lot when the markets opened again in mid to late September 2001. I did some research and I discovered that the put option volume, and put is the opposite of call, meaning if you bet a little bit of money, stock goes down, you make a lot. If it goes up, you lose this. The put option volume on the American airline companies 3 days before 9/11 was the highest it's ever been. And so some fucker realized this. Sorry for swearing. Actually, I'm not when it comes to this. Somebody realized this and knew about what was going to happen. And so governments analyze that stuff closely now, really closely. So if there are massive put positions being put on right now on airlines, for example, the government's going to be investigating, like right away. Yeah. So anyway, so let me talk about options with Coke very, very quickly. Okay, and everything I'm going to show you is data you can access with me for free. And I never have my students pay for any additional web services. There's no point. Okay, so let's go together to finance.yahoo.com. Okay, please work. And this is me buying time. At finance.yahoo.com, you can type in the ticker for Coke, which is KO. Okay. So right here with Coca-Cola, we can see the average daily volume is 19 million shares. Okay, so 19 million shares times $60. It trades a lot. It trades like water, as traders would say on Wall Street. Okay, remember that number, 19 million. If we look at the options, which you can do right here, okay, for Coca-Cola, you will see here that the volume is much, much lower. Okay, 256. And by the way, whenever you buy these things, they're in lots of 100. So you multiply it by 100. But still, the volume is very low compared to that 19 million shares. I mean, the highest volume we have here, what is this here? This is the, this is the number of shares, and this is the volume, okay? The highest volume we have right here, we can see, is the Coca-Cola call options that have a $60 strike price, right, that are kind of at the money. Blue means in the money, okay? A $60 strike price, and this is the March 18th, okay? So you see there that the volume is much, much lower, okay, and the number of shares is way lower as well. And so the bottom line is, when it comes to options, if you put on a big options bet, which according to the Wall Street Journal, David Geffen and Barry Diller did with Activision, ATVI is the ticker. They did it a couple days before the Microsoft acquisition in January. If you do that, the government's going to investigate you. And again, according to the Wall Street Journal, they are investigating David Geffen and Barry Diller. And I hope they let Geffen go, because he's been a wonderful humanitarian as well. And he donated a fortune also to UCLA, and they renamed the medical school after him. Yeah, he's a good guy. I used to date Cher years ago. I'm dating myself. Nobody here probably knows who Cher is. Okay. I'm old but happy. Okay, give me 1 second here. Okay, Caroline wrote, "Hi, Chris from Ontario, Canada. How are you? My people. I miss Canada. I miss Canada. Because of COVID, I couldn't go home forever, and the Canadian government was too strict with that stuff at the border. It was ridiculous, yeah. But it's easier now, and I will be coming home soon, yeah. And I'm going to see my family actually in the 11th province of Canada, which is Florida. They're snowbirds. I'm going to see them in a couple weeks down in Lauderdale, yeah. Thank you. Great to have you on the call. Next up, Eric Hogan. Hey, Eric, how are you, man? Wrote, what do you think about the philosophy of working 80 to 120-hour weeks? Some leaders won't take you seriously if you value work-life balance. Elon Musk pushes 80 hours plus per week. Yeah, I know. Yeah. So, look, I've done it. The problem is, if you do that, I mean, look, a lot of people that are already very successful do that and already very wealthy, and it hurts their health and it hurts their family life. And maybe they want some lasting legacy after they leave so people can see how much money they made, which you can't take with you. The problem, according to the Dalai Lama, with Western society, and I live this, I lived the cancer of Wall Street for years. Every year I get my bonus right before Christmas when I worked at Goldman in New York. And we were always depressed because we compare ourselves to those that make more, get a bigger bonus. It's moronic. And the only time you should look into your neighbor's bowl, pardon me, is to see if they have at least as much as you do, not if you have more. But the problem with Western society is, we sacrifice our health our entire lives in order to make money. And at the end of our lives, we sacrifice all of our money in order to maintain our health. And then we look back and we realize we never really lived to begin with. Yeah. By the way, my posture is getting better, man. It's getting better. So I've been wearing this thing. It's $15, just a strap thing to fix my posture. And when I don't have it on, actually, my posture is fine. It's getting a lot better. You can fix your posture. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, wrote, "Hi, Chris. Is gold and silver worth buying as an investment?" Yeah. So I tend to buy a lot of gold, ticker GLD. It's an ETF, consists of just gold. I buy a lot of gold when I think the economy is going to be terrible. And so my biggest long position in my hedge fund in 2008, one of my few longs, was in gold, ticker GLD. Right? Gold tends to go up when people are scared. Same thing with the US dollar. US dollar goes up when people are scared. Yeah, it's a flight to quality. In terms of silver, I'm kind of on the fence on it. I used to invest in silver Wheaton and the silver ETF, tickers SLV and SLW, respectively. Silver tends to do better. It's got a bit of a correlation to gold, but not too much. It tends to do better when economies are doing great because there's a lot of silver that's used in components. Yeah. Okay. All right, so the next question is, how much Canadian dollars worth of gold and silver should I keep in my Canadian bank locker? As in, should it be equal to my 1 year of mortgage? Yeah, that seems like a lot. I like to be I like all of my students and myself humbly to be diversified. I don't want you to have more than 5% of your liquid non-house net worth. I don't want you to have more than 5% in any one particular asset or investment, like gold or, I don't know, ticker AAPL for Apple, etc. Yeah. And if you want more insight in Canada, especially Ontario, where you are, on the real estate market, look up Tom Karadza. He's one of my great friends. He started Rockstar Real Estate, which is the #1 real estate company in Canada. We go on vacation with him and his wife Carol and their kids every now and then to Europe. They're great. All right. Next up, the Berlin wrote, "Chris, how do you grow an app and subscribers and maintain it in the beginning without any money from venture capital? And what do you recommend doing for starting a running a company? Yeah. So in terms of getting a large spike in subs free, what you can do is you can opine a lot over LinkedIn, give your opinions, as well as YouTube and different social media platforms. Okay, because YouTube, for example, is the only gold rush in history where it costs you nothing to make the product. And it's the only gold rush in history where you can get tons of customers overnight for free. And so what I recommend you do, and everybody does, is you think about what you're most passionate about and be a thought leader and write a lot. Maybe write one article per week. Okay, and repurpose that article that you write on LinkedIn into a vlog or, I don't know, like an Instagram reel or something. And if you do that enough times and you think like a thought leader, like the Rodin sculpture, I think therefore I am, then eventually the media will come to you and you'll get free PR for your company. Now, when you write your articles, and I recommend everybody do this, I'm not going to market my book here, but what I did was I wrote one article per week on LinkedIn for about 2 years. They're short, like James and the Giant Peach, short chapters. I did one article per week for about 2 years. And then I published it into a book. And so the name of the game is repurposing your content so you can work smarter, not harder, kind of like what Nintendo has been doing forever. You know, Nintendo will take their older IP, you know, Mario 64, whatever it is, and the 8-bit and 16-bit versions of the Mario franchise, and they'll put it on new platforms. They're repurposing. And it's the same thing when it comes to your thought leadership and articles. You repurpose it on different platforms, YouTube, LinkedIn, Insta, etc., and TikTok, which my team has started to do. Now, what you also want to do is you want to be a little bit controversial in your marketing. Because if you're controversial, the media will pick up on it as well. And so there's a website called, a great company actually called Poets and Quants. They do everything MBA. And they reached out to me and interviewed me, and I gave my kind of extreme longer term perspective on why I think a lot of universities are going to go out of business. So if you're somewhat controversial and genuine, then you'll get free media attention as well. Now, Mark Benioff did this for years with Salesforce. For many years at Salesforce.com, he used to talk about how software is dead. And the logo of Salesforce for many years was a cloud and then the word software crossed out. And so a lot of media publications thought, that's interesting. Why do you think software is dead? And so he made friends with 50 of the top tech and finance journalists in the world, and it was great and free PR for him. Kind of like it's free PR for Elon whenever he's somewhat controversial, but tasteful. Now, when you get that first interview with the media, and you notice that the number of subscribers spikes for your app or whatever it is you're making, your service, set up another meeting with the media if you can by networking, and I teach you how to do that in my MBA program. And once you get the second spike in subs, then strike while the iron's hot and try to raise money. Because one data point doesn't make a trend, but a couple do. Okay, next question is, what do you recommend doing for starting and running a company? Yeah. So in my MBA program, I go through all the steps on everything you need to know about starting and running a company as well in a lot of detail. If you have specifics, let me know. I'm more than happy to give you my humble thoughts. And if you're in the silver, meaning the on-demand version, then today at, how are we doing on time? In about a half hour, I've got Zoom with all my silver on-demand people. And if you're in silver, just go to the first lesson in the curriculum to get that link. Yeah. And I can go through your business model and all that stuff if you want me to. Okay. All right. Next up, Blue Sky wrote, "Hi, Chris. I'm your student from Udemy. Thank you. I really hope to understand the journey after IPO." Yeah. So what happens usually is the reason that companies go public is because there's pressure from venture capitalists to harvest their investment to make money. Okay. And the time when venture capitalists will give the company to investment bankers to take a company public, the time when they do that is usually when revenue growth stops accelerating. So a lot of private companies, revenue growth is accelerating. Like remember calculus, the rise over the run, derivative. So revenue growth is accelerating. And the second revenue growth is still positive but decelerating. That's usually when the venture capitalists give the company to the investment bankers and have them take the company public. Because almost every single publicly traded company has positive revenue growth, most of them do, But it's hard to find one with revenue growth that's accelerating unless they make an acquisition, in which case it's not real organic growth. Okay, and once your company is public, and it's something I'll never do, and I'll never take investors. I've been offered a lot over the years. But once your company is public, you're accountable to shareholders, right? There's a lot of pressures, man, right? Like it's a big distraction. Like a CEO might have to meet with tons of investors throughout a year when she or he could be spending their time, I don't know, growing the company. It's rough. And that's why big companies usually have investor relations departments that will deal with that. Or they outsource to an IR firm like the Blue Shirt Group here in the Bay Area. Yeah. And you got regulatory filings as well. You got to file a 10Q for the quarterly report, 10K for the annual, and 8K for press releases. It can be a real nightmare. However, it's a way to be able to raise a lot of money, to grow, and make your employees really wealthy. Okay, next question is, what skills and degree are required to become a CFO at a startup? How can a CFO transition to becoming a CEO? And can a CMO, meaning Chief Marketing Officer, ever become CEO? Yeah, a lot of questions there. Yeah. So most startups don't have a CEO or CFO in the early stages because they don't really have any revenue or anything to account for. So a CFO is often brought in the B round or later. Yeah. Now, in order to become a CFO at a startup, I recommend you get a lot of work experience as maybe a vice president of finance or the corporate finance department in other large companies, or do a CPA and work at an accounting firm like KPMG, etc. That's what I would say. And if you're curious about how you can become a CFO at a startup, go to LinkedIn and find the names of CFOs at startups, and then just look to see what their career profile has been. Do they have a CPA? Did they work in finance at a bigger company, et cetera? But the most important thing, though, is networking. Of course, you have to have credibility in terms of some finance experience. But relationships are always more important than product knowledge. And your network is your net worth. And that's why I always talk about networking on my networking book on my website. Yeah. Now, how can a CFO transition to becoming a CEO? It's very hard to do. It's very rare as well. I've seen it happen in the software industry every now and then. Safra Katz did it at Oracle, but she's a financial genius. She's an amazing strategist. Yeah. It's been done at Quest Software as well. Scott Davidson, a great guy. He was CFO for years. It's very, very hard. Now, if you have the personality of you're a great salesperson and you're the CFO, there's a chance you can make CEO one day. And so that's what a CEO is. And that's what a great entrepreneur is. A great salesperson. They can sell. So if you're a CFO or a finance-oriented person and you can sell and you're passionate about selling as well, and you can really identify with people and network, etc., then you got a much higher chance of making CEO, regardless of what your background is. All right, next question is, can a CMO ever become a CEO? Yeah, I've never seen it, but I'm sure it's happened a lot. Now, the CMO role is relatively new compared to the CFO and CEO role. Like I never even heard of CMO as a position back in the 90s. And then the internet blew up and everyone needed more marketing help, so that the position was created. I've never seen it, but I'm sure it's happened. Yeah. Okay. Next question is from which is, what are your thoughts on Canadian housing market bubble after a recent rate hike by the Bank of Canada? Yeah. So in general, I think, and it's all countries are raising rates now. United Kingdom's done it a couple times. United States did it yesterday, and they'll do it a couple more times this year. The Bank of Canada did it, and they'll keep raising rates as well. So generally speaking, when rates go up, fewer people buy houses because it's more expensive to get mortgages. So I'm a little bit careful right now on real estate. I am still actively looking for property. I always am. And my favorite place to invest in Canada is London, Ontario. I own a couple buildings there, close to the University of Western, because students still pay rents when the economy is bad. And we had some students that trashed the place. And my wife said, we're never renting to guys ever again. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. All right. Next up, Blue Sky wrote, good to see you from Singapore. Great to see you as well. I have a lot of students in my MBA program from Singapore as well. And I think Singapore is probably the best place in Asia to invest longer term because as China is going back towards communism, it's sad, and there's freedom of speech issues in Hong Kong. We've all seen a lot of Western companies, corporate headquarters, just can't be in Hong Kong anymore. It's got to be Singapore. Yeah, you're very well positioned. So buy Singapore ETFs after you do your research. You wrote here, may I know, after an IPO, a company normally sells how many percent of the shares to the public? I'm not sure who is selling the shares to the public after the IPO. Yeah. So during an IPO, there's two classes of shares that usually occur. There's primary shares and secondary shares. Primary shares are brand new shares that are created. Okay, brand new shares. And the public buys those shares, and the company uses that money to grow. Then there's something called secondary shares. And secondary shares are shares that are owned by employees or investors, like venture capital firms. And so in an IPO, a lot of secondary shares are there. Okay. Now, the issue with secondary shares is after an IPO, there's a 6-month lockup, meaning if you're a venture capitalist or an insider or manager of the company or an employee and you have shares and you want to sell them in the IPO, you have to wait for 6 months after the IPO. And that's why, and I used to play this game when I worked in the hedge fund market, that's why stocks tend to go down 6 months after an IPO. It doesn't matter what the fundamentals are for the company. If people are selling, they're going to sell. And I always did that as well. And so I received shares in a company called Nimble Storage, ticker NMBL. When I worked in venture capital, we had a nice exit. They went public. Haroun Mehta, the CEO, is a brilliant guy, and so is Suresh Gasudian. So I sold my shares 6 months after. I think it was like $30 or something. Company got acquired eventually for a lower price. But I sold my shares because that was 99% of my net worth at that point in time. I didn't care what the fundamentals were like. I needed liquidity now. Kind of like, George Costanza used to say, serenity now. I had to get liquidity. And so it doesn't matter what the fundamentals are like. And so what I used to do in the hedge fund industry is I used to short stocks that were liquid, that trade a lot, right before the 6-month lockup was done, because I knew there's going to be a big increase in supply of shares. And then I'd cover and go long after that was done. Now there's game theory involved because a lot of people are thinking of doing that now. That trade's getting a bit crowded. So like Kasparov in chess, for example, you got to think a couple moves ahead. Yeah. All right. All right, next question I've got is from Tom. Tom wrote, hi, Chris. Tom from Ireland, and first time listening live. Great to see you. I'm part Irish, actually. My grandmother's part Irish. God bless you, Grandma. I miss you. And that's why I'm Catholic. And that's why my eyes are green as well, which sucks because I can't do green screen because the green in my eyes, it just doesn't work. And that's why a lot of people with green eyes in movies, when they use green screen, they either make it blue screen or you wear contact lenses. Yeah, but great to see you. Okay, you wrote, my question is, how do I hire a salesperson to replace me in the field? I run an SME, a small medium enterprise, in Ireland. Thanks, Tom. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah, so it sounds like you want to give your boss, at least 2 weeks notice because you want to leave on good terms because that's your reference going forward. Yeah. So what I would do is this. I would get whoever your customers are. Okay, so say there's 10 people that you sell to. What I want you to do is go to their LinkedIn profile, okay, and also actually first of all go to their Twitter profile to see who follows them. Okay, and they probably don't have that many people following them. And what you do is you look to see if those people work at a competing firm. And if they're salespeople, they probably follow them. And that's a great way to get leads, by the way. And then what I would do is I would reach out to them. Or what you can even do is you can ask your clients, right? You can ask your clients, I'm going to be moving on eventually. I want to make sure that you get the best customer service possible. Do you know of any sales reps at other firms that I might want to look at to hire? That sort of thing. Yeah. Good for you, though, for being long-term focused and thinking like that, though, because it doesn't matter what happens in your career. You go from one company to the next, et cetera. All we have is our reputation. Yeah. And great to see you on the call, Tom. Okay, next up I got Makiri, who wrote, hi, Chris. Hey. In which course do you teach how to do research and tools for investing in stocks and crypto. Yeah. So my MBA program is the one where I do that, the most up-to-date version in a lot of detail. And you can find out more about that by going to harounventures.com. I've got a sale running right now for $499, okay, which is 50% off the list price as well. 30-day money-back guarantee. You got nothing to lose and everything to gain. Thanks. Yeah. And I do have individual crypto courses and investing courses as well, but I recommend my MBA program. It's much more thorough. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, AJ, how are you? AJ wrote, "This is AJ. Always love your dad humor. Thank you. Thank you. I bought stocks a few days back when the VIX was up no matter what." Yeah. Yeah. And so generally speaking, I love to buy broken stocks, but not broken companies. What does that mean? Well, if a company I love broke a support level and it feels like you're catching a falling knife, I love to buy then. Okay, as long as the fundamentals of the company are good. Again, broken stock, but not a broken company. Yeah. And with respect to the VIX, when I really back up the truck, meaning when I really buy a lot of shares in stocks, no matter what, is when the VIX spikes to above 70 or 80. Because the VIX measures fear. And for those of you not familiar with the VIX, it basically measures what the volatility is expected to be from options traders on this S&P 500 for the next 30 days or so. And if people expect a lot of volatility, a lot of fear, then that's when you got to buy. Again, when the VIX is above 70 or 80, I put my reputation on the line. It works. It works. Last time it was there, though, was I think it reached just above 80 in March of 2020 when everybody was selling shares, right? And people were being emotional. Things are never as bad as they seem, and you got to be contrarian. Because if you buy a stock that everyone already loves, there's not many incremental investors to push it higher. You got to buy stocks when they're on sale, and nobody wants them. You got to be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. And you got to be unemotional. And Elon Musk is certainly unemotional. And when the VIX was above 80 in March of 2020, I remember I looked at the filings for Tesla. He bought a ton of shares of Tesla. A ton. And he made a fortune from that trade. And then he sold a lot of those shares last fall when the market was, a lot higher. Tesla was a hell of a lot higher then too. Yeah. So you got to sell when everyone loves, and you got to buy when everyone hates. Be a contrarian and watch your net worth take off. Okay. All right, next question is, how can I quickly get over the daily grudges of life, as in someone being very rude or playing mind games like some people do, and me thinking about someone treating me poorly the whole day? What are your thoughts? Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm sorry you're going through this. So the best way to deal with this in general is I want you to tell yourself unjustified criticism is nothing more than a disguised compliment. Okay? So say it with me. Unjustified criticism is nothing more than a disguised compliment. And that's a powerful way to think. And so if you're being unfairly criticized, it might be because somebody feels threatened by you because you're very good at what you do, or they're jealous, or another reason. So I want you to brush it off. I want you to be like Teflon and just think to yourself, thank you. Thank you for that compliment, you insecure putz. That's what you got to do. Now, another thing I want to say is from a corporate perspective, I hate corporate politics. I can't stand it. And if somebody approaches you in your corporation and they say something to you, and regardless of how you answer, it's going to be used against you, right? They're trying to poison the politics of your performance, whatever. Then I want your answer to be this when I ask you a question or say something. I want you to say two words. I want you to say, I understand. And if you try that in all aspects of your life, relationships, etc., it's not confrontational because you're not saying you agree or disagree. You're saying, I understand. And if you're at a point in your company where you're really, really being treated poorly and it's frustrating for you, then what I want you to do is I want you to embrace that frustration as a blessing, because it will motivate you to either get a better job somewhere else, making more money, or start your own company. My favorite kind of student I work with are the ones that are frustrated and the ones that are being treated poorly and the ones that have been dealt a crappy set of cards in life. That motivates the heck out of me to help. So channel that frustration, because frustration leads to breakthrough or reinvention. It leads to you taking risks with your career and doing what you're passionate about and telling yourself, I don't give a damn what anybody thinks of me. I'm going to live my life my own terms. And so whatever your frustration is, let me help you reinvent yourself. If you have goals in terms of what you want to accomplish at your company or a company you want to start, let me know. I want to help you. That's why I'm here. I'm here to humbly help. All right. All right, next up, the Berlin, who's in my MBA program, hey, wrote, Chris, I asked people the 30-day question, what they will do if they had 30 days to do whatever they want to. And some reply with, they truly don't know. So how would you reply to that, Chris? Because I was like a little damn. Yeah. No, I was like, damn. Yeah. So for me, this is what I do. Teach. I love it. And I want to help you all find your passion. And I think of myself as I work for all of you. I think of you as I'm your humble waiter. When you go to a restaurant, you see a lot of items on the menu, but you just pick one or two items. I want to expose all of you to every type of career so that you can think about what is lightning in a bottle for me. You know, what makes me incredibly euphoric in terms of a career. That's what I want to do. I want to help you. For me, it's teaching. And for me, in my entire career, like when I worked at Goldman Sachs, venture capital, hedge fund industry, consulting, etc., I thought I was clinically depressed because my happiest day was always the first day at work. And then it went downhill. I was still a happy-go-lucky guy, easy to work with. And what would happen is my happiest moments at work was when I was mentoring people. And during my annual reviews at companies, they always say, Chris, you're doing great, whatever, top performer, humbly. However, and this is always very uncomfortable for them, they would say, however, can you maybe spend a little bit less time, I don't know, mentoring people in different departments, spend less time doing that? And I couldn't. And the writing was on the wall all those years that was what I wanted to do, was to help people. It makes me happy. I'm not happy unless you're happy. I'm not successful unless you're successful. You know, don't expect to accomplish your dreams in life unless you help others accomplish theirs first. And so for me, the obvious choice was teaching. I wanted to help. I wanted to mentor. And this is week 176. I've been doing this 176 weeks in a row. I ain't ever stopping. It's fun. I'm passionate about it. It makes me happy. I want you all to find something that's fun, that you're passionate about, that makes you happy as well. And when one teaches, two learn. Okay. Next up, AJ wrote, anything you'd like to say about PayPal? It's a great company, but keeps falling. Yeah. Certainly not as well run as Stripe. Well, I would just, I'd have to do more work on the company itself. I don't even know the name of the CEO anymore. I used to be an investor in eBay for years and PayPal for a while there. But I would just, first of all, take a step back and ask yourself this question. Will electronic payments be more relevant or less relevant in 5 years? Of course, more relevant. Okay, great. Then we roll up our sleeves and we start doing work on PayPal. You start with the management team. Okay. Look at who the CEO is. Have they been successful in the past? Watch videos of them presenting. You know, are they great salespeople as well? That's important because they meet with investors, the CEO, and they have to convince the investors to love the company and the company's vision. And that's, of course, just one of many steps. So in my MBA degree program, I provide you with tons of templates to analyze any company. And let me share one with you really quickly here. Okay, and you guys actually can download this. I'm not supposed to do this, but it's fine. Okay, so I'm going to go to the 4th semester EMS, all lowercase, 4-2. That's Economics Management and Strategy, semester 4, class number 2. And right here is, this is called the Haroun Education Ventures Investment Research Dashboard. And I explain this in a lot more detail during the program. This, again, is just one of many different templates that you can access. But I want to show it to you because it's actually a great way to think about, let me download this instead of looking at it here. It's a great way to think about how to invest in companies. So let me open this up here. All right, give me 1 second. I'll go here, downloads. All right, so I'm going to go down here to downloads. Give me 1 second. Here it is. Oh, it's opening in the past anyway, in the background anyway. All right, so give it a second to open up here. This works on Windows and a Mac as well. But the way this works, I'm sorry, it's tiny here. It's kind of tough to see. Is I've got 100 steps for you to analyze any company. Okay, and again, I provide you with all the templates and tools you need in order to make investment decisions or start your own company, etc. I'll never tell you what to buy or sell, but I want to humbly help you think about how to do it. I'll teach you how to fish, but I won't give you a fish. Okay, I butchered that quote. So right here, we look at 3 categories of things: qualitative research, quantitative research, and financial research as well. Okay, and so what you can do is you just click here and go through all steps. And basically what you do is you input a bunch of data, and I'll tell you exactly when to input it. And all this stuff is automatically created for you. Okay. And what comes out of this also is a report. Okay. An executive summary, 1-page report, and this is all linked. Okay. An executive summary where you look at fundamentals, valuation, and maybe technicals. And there's also a 150-page research report that comes out of it here. Again, from a dashboarding perspective, all this stuff is updated for you. Automatically. And this is just dummy data here. Okay. But we look at all the macro, micro stuff for every type of company. And I ask you questions, it all gets, For example, total addressable market. I have you enter in stuff here that goes in your report. And then here you can always click to see a video of Chris explaining this, which comes back to my website. Because if I did it in YouTube as a link, if I change the video, I can't change the link. Yeah. So right here, I explained. Okay, so this tab here. I was wearing the same shirt that day. And this is all just dummy data here. Okay. So anyway, check that out. Again, that's one of the many templates I have in my MBA program. We got a sale going on for a short amount of time. You can get my MBA for $4.99. It was just 50% off the $9.99 sticker price. The sale ends soon. 30-day money-back guarantee. Go to harounventures.com to check it out. Thanks. Okay. Okay, next up, Milciades wrote, and can I show you guys something? Thank you for this question. I want to show you what to do because I'm so ignorant when it comes to pronouncing names. So here's what I do. So I have a student named Mircea, and I had to look up how to say that the person's name, and so I do this a lot of times. So I'm going to type that up here. And before you go to an interview, if you want to learn how to pronounce someone's name, you can do what I'm about to show you. So, for example, my last name is Haroun, which is Haroun. Haroun. People used to read my name wrong as Haroun. Okay, so here's what you do. YouTube, name, pronounce, okay? This helps a lot. It makes you look like $1 million. And I take my students seriously, and I don't want to butcher anyone's name because I love you guys. Milciades. Okay, so I'm going to see here. Okay, so Colombian or Argentina. Okay, here we go. So watch this. So you fast forward about 10 seconds in. Here we go. Listen. Let me do it again. Milciades. Okay, so the question is from Milciades. I know. The question is from Milciades. Okay, and if I didn't pronounce that right, please let me know. Welcome to the call. It's wonderful to see you. I hope you join us again. Milciades. Okay. So questions from Milciades, who wrote, I want to take the opportunity to congratulate you for the worksheet in the cryptocurrency course. I'm enjoying and learning a lot in each lesson. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. And in that course you're taking, I love making that worksheet. It was so fun. And I'm creating an Excel course now where I'm going to be teaching you how to do advanced stuff, including programming, like sub-procedures. And you'll see why I have this graphic when the course comes out. I'm going to be teaching Python, other stuff as well. I used to be a full-time developer for 4 years back in the 90s. I used to be a beta tester for Microsoft Development Network. I love technology. I code on the side. I've done it for years. So I hope you enjoy it. Yeah. I had so much fun making that course too. And in fact, this is crazy. But when I made that course, the complete cryptocurrency course, which I updated, there's a more updated version in my MBA program. But when I made that course, I hired this guy to proofread everything. Right? Now, 6 months of my life, I worked day and night on that course. I hired a guy to proofread, and he was so amazing. Okay? And I did my due diligence to find him. He was so amazing that after I released the course, I got a knock on my front door that scared the hell out of me. It was a man from the NSA. I was like, oh my God, what did I do wrong? And he said, well, I want to talk to you about this person, right? The person that I hired. And I put on my depends. I thought I was going to go to jail or something. I did nothing wrong. I'm fully transparent, right? And so if the NSA is watching now, yeah. Anyway, but what happened was the NSA, I think, wanted to hire that person. And they were just doing a background check. He was very nice. He's very nice. And so I took my depends off and life went on. Yeah. But that's how much work I did on that. I tend to really get into things and, yeah, overdo things as well. Oh, in the Excel thing, I'm going to be teaching also. That's why I have this as well. I'm going to be teaching some programming stuff there in Excel and other languages as well. And it's going to be very visual as well, hence the props. Yeah. And I'm loving my 3D printer, which costs $170. Open source. Painful to learn, but I love it. Okay, next up, Mr. Schums wrote, I bought this guy's course on Udemy. Big waste of money. I want a refund. Okay, thank you. Okay, tell you what you can do. If you bought the course within 30 days, Mr. SHUMZ, you can get your money back. Or if you bought it from my website, within 30 days, just email support@harounventures.com. Again, the comment from Mr. Schums is, I bought this guy's course on Udemy. Big waste of money. I want a refund. And that was with respect to the cryptocurrency course. Thank you for the feedback. Again, you can get a 30-day money-back guarantee on Udemy. Okay. Or you can email support@harounventures.com if you bought the course on my website within the past 30 days. And thank you for your reply, your comment there. All right. And remember before I was talking about unjustified criticism? I just got put in a great mood. Thank you. And Mr. Schums, I love you. I do. Okay, next up, Renveer wrote, hey, Chris, I hope you're doing well. I'm always well. Hope you are. What are your thoughts on a CFA degree? Can I complete all 3 levels in 2 years? No, you got to do it within 3 years. So what a CFA is, for those who are not familiar with it, it's better than an MBA. If you want to do finance. A CFA stands for Certified Financial Analyst designation. And it's a 3-year thing. You don't go to classes. They recommend a lot of textbooks to read, which costs $500 at least. You read those textbooks and you write 1 exam each year on like a Saturday. And if you pass, then you're a CFA charter holder. Now, if you're going to do it, don't buy the books they recommend. I want you to go and spend $30 only on buying used books by a company called Schweizer, which is what I did. Okay, so Schweizer is a company that makes books to help you study for the CFA. And Schweizer is owned by Kaplan, which is owned by the Washington Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos. Yeah, but check it out. Okay. And level 1 is basically a review of the basic finance and accounting stuff you learn in an MBA program. And then level 2 and 3 is a little bit more advanced, like options, bonds, ethics, and all that great stuff. All right, next up, NKit wrote, hi, Chris. Can I become a tech entrepreneur if I'm from an arts background? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, Steve Jobs, he was famous for studying liberal arts at Reed College. He never finished, but his favorite class was calligraphy. And he always talked about his passion for the intersection of arts, of the liberal arts and technology. So you can definitely do it. Definitely do it. And don't feel that if you didn't learn how to program at school that you're priced out of the market. All you have to do is take online courses. So you can, there's this woman, she's amazing, named Angela Yu, and she's in the United Kingdom, and she teaches how to program. She's great. So just do a search on her name and Udemy and take her courses, or take Rob Percival's programming courses as well. He's in Cambridge. I spent a day with him up there years ago. Good guy. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Next up, wrote, let me just do a time check because we got to finish this. Okay, a couple minutes left. Yeah. And if you're in the Silver on-demand MBA program, what you can do is go to the first lecture of your curriculum, and you can go to the link for the YouTube live call I'm going to be doing with all of you in a couple of minutes. And we're going to do Zoom as well. We don't do Zoom on this general session in case you want me to help you with your LinkedIn profile or resume or business plan, or you got an interview coming up, you want me to help you, etc. Yeah. All right, so wrote, I have a friend who was once a project manager and now works as a security guard. I've told him that one reason this has halos because he smokes too much weed, but he doesn't quit. And that's part one. And part two of your question is, let me scroll down. Part two of your question is, it jumps on me sometimes, so I'm gonna have to search for the word weed. There we go. All right, part two. He used to be ambitious, but he has no goals now. There is nothing coming between us now. What are your thoughts about ending a friendship gracefully? I wish he improved, but he has no plans for it. Yeah. So here's what I'd say. Well, first of all, I believe that everybody deserves a second chance. And I have people in my program that are in various forms of rehab programs as well. And I'm with you, and I love you, and I want to do whatever I can to humbly help. But you got to want to help yourself. Like, people talk about interventions, but they truly have to want to help themselves. And what Tony Robbins does, he explains it and breaks it down brilliantly. He talks about pain versus pleasure. And so, for example, and you can articulate this to your friend as well, but in a more sophisticated way than what I'm about to explain. So when it comes to pain versus pleasure, if you look at a chocolate cake in front of you, you're like, oh, if I eat that, I'll get this much pleasure, but I'll have this much pain because, I'll gain weight, it'll be bad for my skin, etc. And so you got to find a way to articulate that to your friend that, hey, you're not living your full potential in life because you're smoking too much weed. But they have to want to help themselves. But if this person influences you at all to do something you don't want to do and poisons or pollutes your ability to live at your full potential, then you got to fire them as a friend. I remember when I was younger, my parents, they would say to me, I don't want you hanging out with that person because he does drugs. And I was like, Mom, they don't do drugs. What are you talking? They did drugs. So sometimes you just got to cut them off unless you have the strength to not do it as well. Yeah. But some people are just happy, being like that. And weed is, I don't do it because it kills my motivation. If it didn't kill my motivation, I would do it. But some people are just happy, doing weed every now and then. It's medicinal as well, as long as it doesn't lead to something that's much more extreme. And it's tricky now because, I have 3 boys and, weed is legal now. I can't believe it is. I don't think it should be, except for medicinal purposes. Yeah, but it impacts people in different ways. Yeah. And I hate anything that takes away my motivation. And I don't know if I answered your question correctly, but thank you. Okay, AJ wrote, last question. As many as you want, please. I'm here for you. The options course is useful for Indian markets as well? ? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what I teach in all my courses is applicable globally. So with respect to the Indian markets, I have examples in the curriculum there on Satyam, Infosys, Wipro, etc. Okay, not just the ADRs. Yeah, and the Indian option markets, they're actually bigger, some of their markets, than they are in America. They're massive. Everything I teach you in all my courses is generic to apply to everything. Yeah, or your money back. Okay, and then you wrote, I'm enrolling this weekend. Thank you. Thank you for all the educational video. You're most welcome. Thank you. Okay. Next up, Eric wrote, I think coming from an arts background helps you in business because it teaches creativity. I agree. And whenever you can be creative in business, it means you're using your heart more. And if you use this a lot more, this works much gooder. So for me, for example, I love to think of myself as like, I don't know, like an artist. I know it sounds cray-cray, but when I create Excel spreadsheets or something, it's artistic. And I like to be creative. And if you are creative and think differently than others, then you can truly marry or live at the intersection of technology and the liberal arts. And you can be creative. And it's fun. It's fun. Like this, the lighting behind me, this is a form of art as well. If I just had kind of a blank wall and wasn't creative, artistic, I don't know, it'd be kind of boring for me. Yeah. I love being creative. Yeah. Okay. And I actually have got to wrap this up now because I got to go to the silver call. I know there's tons more questions. I apologize, I won't be able to get to them. But what you can do is copy your questions and ask me next week. Or if you're in the silver program, you can ask me at 10 a.m. In a couple of minutes. And so I want to thank you all for your time. Please click like and subscribe. And if you're in the silver MBA, I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Otherwise, have a great weekend. I'll see you next Thursday and every Thursday forever. I love you all. Thank you so much for the wonderful questions today. All right. Let me just click here. Thanks again.